Living in a place like Oakland County and going to a school as good as this one, it's often hard for us to realize how exactly good we have it. This next speaker, having lived in 4 countries and 11 cities, has seen a large variety of living systems and standards. From her experiences in Pakistan, this next speaker decided to take action in a unique way. To talk about her experiences and what she did, please welcome Zoha Bharwani.
I want everyone to close their eyes for a second and imagine this. You're walking down the driveway of your house one morning. Your footsteps are light as you walk towards your car, or maybe a few blocks down to wait for your bus. The sun is shining, and there's a cool breeze you can feel on the back of your neck. With every step you take, you can feel the rubber soles of your shoes against the paved cement under your feet. Got that image? Good. Now scratch it all and imagine this instead. You can no longer walk through anything. You have to wade through this murky brown water. The sun is no longer shining. It is cloudy and humid, and the only thing you can feel, hear, and see is the incessant pouring of the monsoon rains onto your small village in a rural part of Pakistan. With every step you take now, your feet squelch in the mud. Now some of you might be a little confused with this image that I just presented to you. Some of you might be asking yourselves, why on earth would I be going through something like that? Why would anyone willingly put themselves through something like that? Now before I get to that, let me ask you this first. Why do you wake up in the morning? What makes you fight to get through the day? For the people in the situation I just described to you, it is education that motivates them to wade through that water for 2 miles until they can get to school. It is the thought that maybe education can lift their children out of the small village they've been trapped in and out of the conditions of poverty they've been forced to live with, and take them somewhere where they can make their dreams come true. Education. When I say that word, what comes to mind? For a lot of us, we think school, IA, books, homework, ew. But what is education really? Why do I believe in it so much? And why are there people who risk their lives every day for the chance to obtain it? In all honesty, I never appreciated the true value of my education until I visited Pakistan in 2010, after the floods that robbed nearly 20 million people of their homes, livestock, agriculture, and infrastructure. I visited a flood victim camp, and I actually had the opportunity to speak to one of these displaced families. The father told me about his gratitude that his family was safe, but also about some of the problems they had encountered since having to leave their village. Amongst these, he mentioned how he worried about finding a new job, getting back on his own feet, supporting his family, rebuilding his houses. They also mentioned, however, some of the other devastating effects of the flood, such as the waterborne diseases, the carcasses of the drowned animals in the villages, and the stench of the rotting flesh and mold. Now, as he was speaking, his 11-year-old son came in and sat down next to him with a book. I don't know if you can see the book. Okay, never mind. But it was then that the father truly opened up about what worried him the most about his family's situation. He was worried about how this displacement would affect his children's education. He told me how he had spent countless hours trying to find a teacher who he could find to come and instruct his sons and daughter at the camp, but it was to no avail. He told me that he hated how his children's time was being wasted when they could be off learning something. Now, I was a little puzzled to hear this. I mean, of all the complications to face when your life has been torn apart by a catastrophe like this kind of flood, and he worried about his children's school time being wasted? I asked him this, and his response was awe-inspiring. He told me that since the floods had struck, he had learned to appreciate the value of his children's education in a way he could never have before. He realized, and he told me, that without his crops and his livestock as a farmer, he was nothing. He felt as though he was nothing more than a man confined to poverty. Yet through this, he came to realize that it didn't have to be this way for his children. It didn't have to be this way, for if they got access to a quality education, they could be successful anywhere in the world, not just restrained to the life of a farmer. It was at that moment that I truly appreciated the value of the education that had been handed to me on a silver platter all my life. It was at that moment that I realized just what a difference it can make in a person's life. And from that moment, I was determined that I would do whatever it took to make sure that he could get his children the education they deserved. And from that moment on, I was determined that someday I would ensure that no child should ever have to go without access to education, no matter what their socioeconomic status, or their backgrounds, or their circumstances, or even the disasters they faced. Now, shortly after this, I created a nonprofit organization with the help of my dad. It was called After Catastrophe, and the aim was to provide children who had been affected by natural disasters with an access to quality education. Now, my dream was not to be like one of those charities that sort of just dump money on the victims and then leave them in worse condition than they started in. My dream was to provide a second chance for people who previously had no means of getting out of the chains of poverty. So since then, I've been working on creating a network that can ensure that every single child has access to education, no matter where they come from, who they are, or what they go through. So I wanted to ask you at the beginning of this, why you get through your day. But let me say something first. This dream might be idealistic, this dream of education for every child, and I realized that I might not change the whole world. I mean, I was 11 when I visited Pakistan, and so I know that it might be somewhat idealistic, but I also know that if I can make even one person's dream of education come true, then it's an invaluable step towards making my dream of quality access to education come true. So this is why I asked you all at the beginning to consider what makes you wake up in the morning. What makes you fight to get through your day? Because if you believe in something with all your heart, there is nothing in the world that can stop you from going out and making even a humble difference in the world. There is nothing that can stop you. After all, the future is in our hands. So what are you going to do with it?